I rise to speak on the topic that my friend and colleague from Montgomery County so eloquently addressed a short while ago. Another week, another mass shooting in the United States of America. 8 lives last week, 10 lives this week, which would, in all likelihood, would have been more, but for the bravery of Officer Talley. Another week passes in this country in which we fail to take action on the most reasonable and most basic of measures that would make our community safer. And another week passes when here in Pennsylvania, in this General Assembly, there is not even the slightest glimmer of hope that such legislation like universal background checks or the lost and stolen bill or safe storage legislation, let alone a reasonable measure like stopping the sale of these assault weapons that kill so many in so short a period of time and which are designed to do exactly that and nothing more. Another week, and the people that we represent, the men, the women, and yes, the children of our communities, continue to be at heightened risk of senseless, brutal attacks on large scale because we fail to do anything to protect them. No, we cannot stop every act of violence. And yes, the gun epidemic has been going on for years and years and years in this country. In many communities that have felt its brunt and have only recently felt support to try to do something about it. But there is no other aspect of public policy that we hold to the standard of perfection the way we're told we need to hold this issue to perfection. That if a background check bill, for example, would not have stopped the murder in Colorado yesterday, or the murders of all those innocent children in Sandy Hook, Connecticut, over 8 years ago now, that we somehow shouldn't even be in favor of that because it wouldn't solve all of our problems. And how can we have a safe storage bill? Because how can you enforce that, despite the fact that the states that have it have actually shown that suicides, homicides, and accidents have gone down dramatically because of that legislation? We continue to allow these excuses from the National Rifle Association and other groups who want no changes to our policies and who will argue at every turn that it's a slippery slope. And they come back to our state constitution and our federal constitution to argue that these rights are inviolate and no limitation on them can ever be abided. But we know that's not true. We know that every right that we enjoy as citizens of this Commonwealth and as citizens of the United States have limitations. For when the exercise of one of our rights infringes on another, And most importantly, when it potentially endangers them, the law steps in and recognizes that there is a limitation. And it is no less true when it comes to the right to keep and bear arms. These are reasonable measures that we know, and we've said time and time again, that gun owners themselves support. But lobbyists with power do not. Another week has passed. Another mass shooting has occurred in the United States. Still, we do nothing. It is time for us to act. It's time for us to decide that enough is enough and that we are going to do something, not sit back and pretend that there's nothing we can really do, or that somehow none of it would ever pass constitutional muster. It's time for us to stand up and say enough. It's time for us to stand up for our communities. It's time for us to say no more, that we are no longer going to be a country where these events happen with such frequency that they become commonplace, that we become numbed to what happens and simply accept that that's part of life in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania or part of life throughout the United States. It's time for us to act. It's time for us to stand up. It's time for us to make our communities safer and enact these reasonable bills into law. Thank you, Mr. President.